What's going on, everyone? We're Group 15, and our group read Death of a Moth by Virginia Woolf, and we decided to compare the theme of death in that to the theme of death in Gilgamesh.
All right, so first we're going to start by summarizing Death of a Moth, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to comparing the aspect of death and that to Gilgamesh. In Virginia Woolf's Death of a Moth, Woolf begins with the setting of a peaceful but also bustling summer morning. The noise and action in which distracts her from her book. She observes a moth flying around her room. Charmed by its liveliness, she watches the moth, who she personifies with the pronouns he and him. She compares the outside world, large and energetic, to the moth, a being so small yet so energetic. She claims him to be little but full of life when he flies near her.
Woolf observes the moth as a metaphor for life itself, and also connects it to herself. All at once, full of life and joy, living to its fullest, then all but suddenly it loses its will, its fight against death, just as Woolf herself will at the end of her life. She watches the moth land on the windowsill and sees that he has trouble taking off, struggling to take off and failing each time. Death is sneaking up on him. Woolf, thinking him poor and pitiful, tries to help him, but realizes he's dying. She watches him fight against the encroaching darkness, determined to live, yet he won't succeed. She's struck by his determination and strength, but goes on to say nothing has a chance against death. Woolf laments about how, despite nobody caring about your struggles in life or how much you want to survive, people will always find sympathy in life.
The moth has been historically used as a symbol of death in other literary works, so it is ironic that the symbol itself is experiencing death. This could be interpreted in a way that all things must come to an end, no matter what they are. Life is finite. It can also be connected to Woolf herself, as she likely related her own struggles to that of the moths. Woolf battled mental illness just as the moth battled against death. No matter how hard the struggle, it ended up losing the battle in the end. With the death of the moth and the unfortunate passing of Virginia Woolf, she makes it clear that the moth is alone in this struggle, with nothing anyone can do to stop death, but still be observed. This is similar to Woolf's life, where she struggles on her own. Although people may notice her struggles, they feel as if there is nothing that can be done and only watch it in pity. There comes a point when fighting against extreme struggles becomes too much for an individual to handle, which leads to the individual letting go of all fight and letting death take its course. Alright, so in the Epic of Gilgamesh, we begin with Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk in ancient Mesopotamia. He's an angry and vengeful king and rapes and steals from all his subjects. Distraught by this, the god creates his equal, Enkidu. A wild man, Enkidu lives out in the forest and wilderness, one with the animals and nature. When Gilgamesh hears of Enkidu's strength and wildness, he sends a prostitute to go and meet him. Enkidu, once he made love to her, lost his strength as well as losing his deep connection to the animals in the wild, and gained the knowledge of man.
Enkidu ventured to Uruk in search of Gilgamesh after hearing of his disgusting deeds, and there they fought. At a stalemate, Gilgamesh and Enkidu were both satisfied and agreed to be friends and allies, surprisingly. Together, they helped each other become better people, but soon became bored. Gilgamesh, craving adventure and power, suggested they go kill the forest demon Humbaba. Enkidu told him he was crazy, that Humbaba would kill them, but Gilgamesh pushed until his friend agreed. They set out to the forest, and after many days of travel, they found him. They slayed the beast and brought his head back to Uruk to put on the pike. Ishtar, the goddess of love and power, saw this and was infatuated with Gilgamesh.
The goddess descended to Uruk and offered Gilgamesh to be her lover and husband, but he declined. He knew her history, find a man she fantasizes, and only after he becomes useless to her does she throw him away or kill him. He declined, calling her out. This Ishtar was furious and ran back to her father to unleash the bull of heaven on Uruk. Her father reluctantly agreed, and thus the bull went destroying the town and people within. Gilgamesh wasn't having it, and together with Enkidu, they killed the beast, but not without a casualty.
Enkidu was injured and became ill. Over the following days, he became worse, slowly dying in front of his friend's very eyes. Distraught, Gilgamesh tried to keep him alive, but ultimately failed. This blossomed a deep-seated fear of death in the king, and in his own anguish over losing his best friend, he wandered the wilderness. Eventually, he decided he would refuse death and himself become immortal. He was already two-thirds god, as his mother was a goddess, so he set out in search of Utnapishtim, The ancient Mesopotamian man who guarded the flower of eternal youth, Gilgamesh wandered and ventured until he reached a dark cavern that went on for 12 days, with no light to be found.
On the 12th day he reached the shore, where Utnapishtim and Siduri, the goddess of wine, live. Gilgamesh begged for the plant to be made immortal, but Utnapishtim, an immortal himself, refused. Only after Gilgamesh proved himself by not sleeping, Gilgamesh failed, but managed to find the plant anyway. Siduri warns him against immortality, saying that he should enjoy his life to the fullest while he has it, and pass peacefully in the death. The king, undeterred by her words and spurred on his fear of death, doesn't listen. While bathing just after he opened the plant, a serpent steals and eats the plant for itself and runs away, thus ending the epic. Only after ending and letting the audience know that Gilgamesh returns to Uruk, had many children, wrote the story down, and then died.
The Epic of Gilgamesh has many themes, but the most prominent one is death, just as in Wolf's short story. Gilgamesh begins by killing for himself, by slaying the demon Humbaba alongside his brother Enkidu. Then, to protect his city, he slays the bull of heaven. But only after he committed the heinous crime of slaughtering the bull does he experience a personal death himself. His best friend Enkidu dies. He's distraught, heartbroken, and unaccepting, waiting for 7 days and 7 nights before he will let anyone take the man's body away to bury. In his anguish, he seeks out immortality, a new fear of death blossoming in his mind. But he's thwarted by a simple snake, none the wiser to the true power of the plan of immortality. Without it, Gilgamesh remains 2/3 God and will still die in the end.
Gilgamesh and the Moth have much in common, despite the liveliness and the joy of life. Eventually death comes for all, whether it be the smallest and insignificant of moths or the most powerful kings in history. Death doesn't discriminate. At the end of the epic, the goddess Siduri tells Gilgamesh to make his belly full of wine and food, to go back home to his wife and children and enjoy and cherish life until he no longer can. Live life to the fullest, she tells Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh and the Moth are similar in the way that they both struggle before death. Gilgamesh struggles to accept Enkidu's death, then struggles once again to find and obtain the plant, only to lose it. The Moth is the same, struggling to stay alive by flapping its wings and holding on. But death is patient, and it takes them both indiscriminately in the end. Although the time it took for death to take Enkidu was much longer than the Moth, the result is the same.
He was already 2/3 God, as his mother was a goddess, so he set out search of... That's a long word.
I'm sorry, which one is it?
That's a place. I'm not getting that one anytime soon. Utnapishtim. That just doesn't sound right.
Here, let's see what you sound like.
Enkidu was injured and became... This one's rough.
Oh, God.
You just got serious so fast. The Epic of Gilgamesh...